Hi and welcome, my name is Mattias and today we're going to talk about looping and working with collections in Lögdberg apps. And in order to have a good example, I will actually use the day one of Advent of Code. And if you've done that, you're familiar with it. And we're going to go through a big list of items and we're going to find two items that sums up to the value of 2020. And I think the list is about 200 items, so we have a bunch of information to go on. Let's just jump into Advent of Code. If you haven't done it before, it's a fun thing to do. It's every day during December and hopefully it will be 2021 again, a new one. But for now you can actually do last year's one if you haven't done it yet. So that's what we're going to use. So let's jump in. Advent of Code. And the day one, we're going to have we actually have an expense report that we're going to look into, and we're going to find two entries that sums to 2020. And then when we've done that, we're going to multiply those two values, and that's the result of this exercise. And I have the numbers over here, so this is the list that we're going to use, and I have a logic apps over here that I have prepared for this occasion just to have it. So right now it's a receive, and then we have a split function to actually split this list, because when we add it to Postman it will be a string. And I did some quirks over here, so we're going to go through that as well. But let's just copy this list over there and let's go to Postman. So we're going to post this data in. Let's go to raw text. There we go. Let's remove that last enter just for simplicity. And let's go over here. Let's go to designer. So what's actually happening here is that let me just send this one in. Let me copy the URL. Sorry, that might help. And we're gonna copy the URL and we're gonna push it over here. So I'm gonna show you, but oh, we got an error. Post. Sorry. Let's press post and we get this array back. This is actually not as easy as you would think, because when it comes to this part and the content we're sending in raw text. So if you look at this, we have a nice formatted body, but if we look into outputs, it's all of these \r\n. That actually is special signs in as you know, because it's the end line feed. So in order to actually manage that in Lögdberg apps, we need to do something. We need actually to quirk it. So this is why I have this compose, which is blank from this part, but contains \r\n like this. And then we have this other compose that then will bring in and split this string. The problem here is that I've solved is that you cannot really just enter \r\n, because that's not going to work. So you have to actually read it from the string. So what I'm doing here is that I'm taking the input, I'm skipping 4 characters, and then I'm picking 2. And since I know that the 4 starting ones over here is this, and then we have the line feed. So this is how I come around that one. And there we go. So now we have a list of items. Now we need to find the matching item in that list. So we have a list of 200 items that each and every item we're going to pair against that same list of 200 items again. This is going to be a lot of iterations if we go to a big for loop. So let's just start off. We need to start looping anyway. We need to start looping somewhere. So let's just add a control and add a for each loop. And then let's add, we're going to add the compose of this one. We're going to loop over each and every item. And in order to actually get the other items, in order to loop the second one, we would actually need to do a new loop. A new for each loop. And we're going to use the same input. And then in this case, we can actually go ahead and do a condition. So the condition would be Going into expressions. So we got some math functions down here, so we're going to go ahead and pick those. Let's go ahead, math function. So we're going to add. So we need to add these two items, and it's going to be 2020. So we need to add. We then need to get, since I'm looping over two loops, we need to get the current value of the first loop, and we need to have the current value of the second loop. So we're going to then go ahead and I'm just going to show you reference real quick. Referencing functions. So in referencing functions, we have something called, I think it is at least in this one, or is it looping, by the way? Let's go to collection. It might be in the, I'm confused. See more. Let's see. No, it's not that one. Then it has to be in this referencing, but I'm not seeing it. Because it's not item. No, there it is. Items. And the loop name. So, and there we go. I got for each and for each two. So then it will be for each. That's the first item. And then I'm going to add items again. And then I'm going to add the for each two. Before I'm going to press save, we actually need to do one more thing. Because if we go back, you can see that this is strings. Strings sent into the math function is not going to work really well, so we need to parse them. So let's go and check that out, and we can then go ahead and we can say that we have let's scroll this one down a bit. In this part we have math, we got conversion functions. So we have something called int. So we can actually convert the parameter to an integer. That sounds perfect for this case. So let's add int. And we can see that we can put in a value. Sounds awesome to me. And we have int. And we get that one. Perfect. And we want to have that equal to 2020. And then we have then we need to multiply the values. So let's just go ahead and add a compose. And we're going to do the same thing as we did recently. We're going to go multiply. We're going to go integer. Items of for each, and we're going to go ahead and add a integer of items of for each two. There we go. So this should then result in an answer. So this compose in the end should have the correct answer for us. Now it would be very handy to put this as a response or something. Let's go ahead, response. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let's have a request then. Let's see if we get it from that part. There we go, response. But we're not able to do this in for each loop because Lögdberg is building this up as a loop, so it has to be finished. We cannot really jump out of it as we could have done when we're coding something. So we need to iterate everything. And so in this case, we need to iterate 200 times in this. And for each and every item of that, we need to iterate 200 more times. So in the end, we will have iterated 200 times 200, 40,000 times. That's not going to be good. That's going to be really slow. I mean, it's slow when you're working a high-level language like Lögdberg, but it's even slow if you do it in a low-level language. So we need to fix this. We can't do it like this. We need to do something better. So let's just scrap this one. We're not able to use that. Fortunately, I know a trick, or a few tricks. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go to data operations, and we're gonna use something called filter array. So filter array is a really nice feature when you have an array that you want to minimize output. So every time you do a for each loop and then you have a decide right after, then you should remember you're doing it wrong. You should have filter array before. Always filter your arrays before iterating over them, because then you can remove unnecessary iterations. And this is just one action. In this case, we will use this 200 times, but it's much better than 200 iterations per 200 times. So filter array, we can bring in that array again that we have in compose, and we can then say, as we did before, we can use add integer, and we can use items of for each. So then we have the first item, the one we're iterating on, and then we need to have the item of each and every in that array we're going to look into. So in this case we can use something called items. So this is another one. If we go down to expression, we can go referencing again. So referencing, we can see that we have item. When used inside a repeating action, this function returns that action, which means that, oh, I misspelled item, which means that in this case, this will be each entry in the array. So we have the first entry of our looping, and then it will compare inside this action. It will compare against every item in it. So we're gonna get that add items with item, and then we can say that on the other side we can say that 2020 is what we want. If we're then gonna go ahead in this, we actually need to decide anyway. So we need to have a condition, and we need to check the length. So we're going to use this one, length of the collection, and we're going to go back to our array. Let's find our array. Oh, it was on top. So there we go. We need the length of our array, and we need to have that greater than 0. In this exercise we could have it to 1, but we could have it equal to 1, but often it's greater than 0 is the one we want. And then we can actually create this data operation and compose. We can do this multiply integer of items for each, and we need the integer of first item in that collection that we filtered. So in the filter array we need the first item, it's going to be an integer. Perfect. Now we have a compose. As shown before, we cannot exit this looping, so in order to actually show this, we need to bring the information out of the loop. This is not a trivial task actually, because it's not a very easy way to get this compose. I'm going to show you, by the way. Let's just press send on this one. It's going to take a little bit longer now because we're actually calculating the value. But now we need to find it, and let's just have a short checkout for that. We have each loop, and then we have somewhere along the line we will find this compose 3 actually being hit. But I'm not very keen on, clicking next a few hundred times before I'm done. So we need to figure this out. There are a few ways. One way of doing this is using variables. Variables inside of loops is not a very good thing often, but I'm going to show you why. But we can use this in this case. We only have one result, so we only have one result. So let's just have result, and let's put it an integer, and let's just go down here, let the condition, and let's just add a new one, and we go variables, and we want to set the variable value, and we set the result, and we set it to the outputs of compose 3. So there we go, and in the response we want to get that response back. Result. There we go. So in this case we're gonna press send, and let's see. This took 4 seconds and we got the result back. This is currently the result, and let's just check it out against the advent of code answer. Oh, there we go. And my answer was, yeah, it's the same. So we actually succeeded this in logic apps with 4 seconds. If we would have done the looping part, the looping, it would have taken about 4 hours to get that through. 4 hours versus 4 seconds is quite a huge difference. We can even tweak this a little bit, so let's just do that. So let's just go in here and add a settings, and we can actually add currency control. We can max this to 50 instead of the original 20, and let's just hit it to see if we can increase this a little bit at least. Now we have 50 parallel branches. Now wasn't that much. So even if we parallelize it, we can get a little bit better, but even if we parallelize it a lot, we don't get that because it's still a lot of work to go through. The problem here, or the thing is that I actually added a parallel part. So what's happening in a logic app when you have a for each loop, so we have this for each, is that it's gonna go and create parallel actions like this. And by standard it's 20, so we're gonna have these are gonna run simultaneously. And if you remember in my thing here, I had a condition and I had a set variable. Oh wow, that's really poor writing. Set variable, there we go. And I knew that this is just gonna be hit once. But if you're not, and you're gonna have a hit over here, and you're gonna have a hit over here, you're not able to say that it's gonna be, this is not, what do you call it, branch secure. So this is gonna be any of these that's gonna end up in this answer. And even if you do so this is really important when you use the set variable, that you actually do this in a loop that is singular. And by that, I mean a loop that has a setting of degree of parallelism set to 1. If you have something that uses the variable and actually manipulates the value in it, you have to do it like this. Otherwise you will rewrite over that value at any given point, and you will have strange things happening to your variable. So keep that in mind, it's really important. Otherwise you can have this concurrency control set to whatever you want. A good thing is also making sure that if you are hammering an API or something, you kind of maybe want to keep this down a bit. 20 is quite a lot when it comes to that. But by default, it's 20. So there we go. We cracked Advent of Code with one for each loop and a filter array. Always use the filter array before processing any data, so you don't have to do that inside the loop, and try to find usage of those. I mean, select is also an awesome thing if you want to manipulate the data. Then you get a new result set back in the new way that you want it to. There's a lot of things nice with this, but this is an example of doing this, and keep it thread safe, and don't hammer other APIs. And until next time, have a nice day and hope to see you soon. Thanks, bye.